Hello everybody and welcome back. Here we are with our e-buggy build. This is going to be step 9. You see, if you've watched before, you know I finished the front end. Now it's time to move on to the rear end. So we're going to turn this camera around to a POV view and we're going to get started. Okay, welcome back. Here we are with the rear end assembly. I think we start with bag H, or the H bags, which has already been opened. But there's several bags in here. I think that's all of them. Okay, today I've got a special knife to unbox with. This is an older knife, a Case 06247 Case XX USA red bone. It's a super cool knife. Been carrying it the last couple of days. Let's see where we're going to start. Let's start with the C&D plates and the arms. Okay, I went ahead and did my diff shimming just like in my other video. I ended up with 2 shims, just like the front. I ended up with 2 shims under the inside bearing and 1 shim on the outside, just like I described in my diff shimming video. This one went smooth, no problem. Got my white lube on there ready to go. So on the rear end, I don't use the stock C&D plates. I'll show you. I use the -1 C plate, which is here. I'm having to reuse these, and the 2.75 D plate. But I'm gonna have to pull those out, pull that one off. I had it on there to test the gear mesh. My battery's getting low on this thing. Okay, so we'll set that aside so I can leave that in there. We'll go ahead and put our C plate on. I don't know where all the screws are. Oh, there. Must be these. Oh, definitely not those. Oh, they're right here. Okay, and for the pills on the C plate, I use 2 dots in the up position. So we'll sort through these. It's 2 dot. And there's a 2 dot. Then we get a hinge pin and our arms. We already prepped the arms. That was in an earlier video. The left side. Actually, wait a minute. Got to have a metal shim. And I'm doing that backwards. Sorry, it's early in the morning and hadn't had enough coffee yet. I better get another sip. Man, look at that knife, isn't it pretty? Okay, so then for shims, I use 2 in the back on each side, and we got to do the same thing we did on the front. We got to get our body boring tool, open it up just a little bit, roll. Well, okay, then we get a metal shim. Oh, actually, wow, metal shim goes first. Then we get our, like, here's the stock C&D plates. Don't need those. Okay, and the, you know what? I don't remember. Told you wrong. The two dots up go in the back plate. I'm gonna have to back this up. Start over. 1 dot up in the front. Like I said, it's early. Not quite enough coffee yet. Okay, so metal shim. Do it right this time. And then the plastic shims. Okay, so then the rear gets 2 dots up. Finish these off by hand. Don't over torque them. Don't want to put it in any kind of bind. And these are good and free. I've had some kits in the past where they weren't free and I had to trim a little off that. I mentioned that before as well. Okay, and these hinge pins get just a tiny bit of Loctite, and as I mentioned before, I do this because I have had these nuts back off. It's usually after it's got some age to it. I'm about to have to break out a new Loctite. I've had these nuts back off before, but it's usually after a good period of time. The nylon in the locking nut will wear out after you've taken it off several times. So just for the heck of it, I go ahead and put some Loctite on. It doesn't hurt anything. Hadn't had any problems since I started doing that. Again, get it run down tight. I back off just a fuzz, make sure it stays free. Still good and free. Okay, so let's see what we can do next. I'm gonna do the sway bar. I'm using the stock sway bar in the rear, 2.6. So we'll pop these in from the shiny side. Trusty, handy dandy HB tool. Go ahead and pop the ball in there. Oh, roll. Okay, then let's get a little Loctite out here on the table sometimes. So we get our set screws, tiny bit of Loctite. It's actually cold this morning. The background noise you hear is the heater going. And then that background noise is a train. It wouldn't be the same at the warehouse without a stupid train going by. Okay, we slide these on where the end sticks out pretty much, or sticks pretty much flush. Leave the set screw up so you can access it while it's on the car. Probably give it a little more oomph. Okay, we'll go ahead and alright, let's see here. Where are the rest of my... Okay, these are in this bag with the rear chassis brace. We'll slide these peels up out of the way. Bags and bags. Okay, so gotta go here, get a tiny little screw. Hear that train going by? It reminds me that it's weird. A lot of RC tracks I've been to are right next to a train track. I don't know exactly why. I guess it's because most tracks are out in the boonies, and the warehouse is not in the boonies. It's in the middle of Old Town Helena, which is a fairly popular place. Screw that set screw down till it stops the sway bar, then loosen it until the sway bar's loose. Okay, and then we come back and put those pins in it later. Okay, I'm gonna stop this. I'm gonna put this on the chassis next. I gotta find the skid plate. I use a D skid plate, so hang tight. Okay, I'm back with you. So next up, I'm gonna go ahead and put the axle in, get you the drive boot, get my little black grease that I'd used last time. Put a little bit, just a tiny bit on the inside, so that goes on easy. Tiny bit on the outside. Put it over the small end. Be careful not to rip it. This is easy to tear. Okay. Then I put a decent amount of grease here, if I can get it out. And then I'll put just a tiny bit on the diff side, and you can't put too much here. It'll sling out everywhere. But the small side goes in. This will make the axle, the drive shaft, last longer. Okay, so got that ready to go on. So we'll go ahead and slide our drive shaft in, set the rear end in place, and screw it down. Okay, so I use like I said, I use the D skid plate. A lot of people don't like doing this, but it doesn't seem to affect it much at all to me. If it's any performance benefit, I do without it because it saves the chassis. And these are usually super tight, so I get them close to in, and then do it by hand. You don't want to over tighten these, you just warp that skid plate. Go ahead and run them in by hand. Okay, so now I think we can mess with our rear chassis brace. Okay, we've got a set screw that goes in here. Wrong. I'll take it running in about halfway. Clean these out to make it start easier. Then we get our little ball ends. Push them in from the shiny side. Okay, so I like to put these in the bolt, the screw and washer from the bottom side to give more drive shaft clearance. Actually, the top side doesn't matter. It's got plenty of room. So the washer will go on the bottom. Okay, so we got to go back and get our centerpiece out. So now this side, we'll get the screw coming from the bottom. When I've got that, I've got it right. Nope. What I'm thinking. Need more coffee. Ah, yes. Okay, so let me get the nut here. Now we can put this back. These are easy to over torque and strip out, so just run it close and then finish it by hand. So then same thing here. Get it close. Finish it off by hand. Now these braces will loosen up. Like, they're pretty stiff now. There's a little play in them, but they will loosen up and get pretty sloppy. That's a good thing. That is a certain amount of chassis flex that just seems to work in these cars. So I like to keep it that way. A lot of people will put these crazy stiff braces on. I don't like it. I like to have the extra grip from the flex, chassis flex. So, and while we got these arms hanging super low, I'm gonna go ahead and crank them in a little bit. with a droop screw. We'll set the droop later. They've got the longer rear drive shafts. I can't remember the size, but I run those in the nitro buggy, and I probably need to get some for this. It'll let you run a little more droop without the drive shaft coming out. I forgot to order them with this kit. I'll just add those later. Okay, so we'll go ahead and stick our sway bar in there. I'll get to that later. I use the DE mud guards from the 812, 815. Okay, let's get the shock tower. Go ahead and do some assembly on that guy. We'll come back to the shock stands later. We've already done that once, so we can skip that for now. Let's see here. Gotta get some more screws out. Got this bag has the, this is bag H6, has the hinge pins and rear hubs and everything. I'm gonna try to squeeze that into this video if I can. I was looking for my screws for this. I guess they're here. Here they are. Rear shock tower. Maybe not. Okay, so go ahead and put the shock tower in. Gets two flush, two flathead bolts, screws. Two hex screws. Okay, so we go ahead and get our shock tower in. I like to run it in the highest position. I think I'm gonna need some different screws. Maybe I ought to go ahead and, I think I'm going to go ahead and skip that. Make sure I get this rear hub put together right. Because I've got some screws. I'm going to have to dig out a few screws. When you put the tower in the highest position, it normally puts a screw through here. And it's got one for here. But you have to, if you move it here, you got to come up with your own nut and bolt. Because it's normally screws into the, to the diff housing. So I'm gonna get these hubs put together and mounted, and then we'll come back to that. So I use, on the rear hub, let's go ahead and do this first. Let's go ahead and get our drive shafts in. Get your hub and your pin. And we got to get our set screws. set screw gets a tiny bit of Loctite. Just get your hex tool, crank her down, beat it for the other side. Well, okay, so let's go ahead and put these in there. Carbon plates are confusing. I use the stock 5-dot. They look confusing to assemble. Sometimes, a lot of times, I'll put them in backwards. So try to do them the same. They'll bolt screw from the same side so they look uniform. Okay, so we got to get our peel inserts in there. I use 1 dot down. So on the left side, that's going to be number 4 and number 2. So I do the 1 dot down with the shape, arrow looking shape pointing outward. Ooh. So then on the other side, I'm not sure the numbers, I have to look that up. So it's going to be 1 dot down. It's 2 in the back. No, you got 2 in the back, 4 in the front. I think. Yep. Okay, so then we get our hinge pins. I use 2 1mm shims on the back. slide that in there. I'm just going to put a nut on there to hold it together for now, because I'm going to add my mud guards here in a second. Okay, so I'm going to be reusing my mud guards that I've put in here. Now these mud guards, they don't really necessarily make one for the 819, 817 for that matter. I've been using the same ones forever. But this is a DER 112, and it's made for an 812 or a 815 or something like that. You have to trim some. I'll probably make a video. You can see I've trimmed it right along here. Takes a good bit of trimming, but fits great. So I'll take this nut back off. It's going to slide over that nut, and then the pin for the sway bar is going to go through it and through the sway bar. And of course it's fighting me. There we go. Okay, so these hinge pins, I give it a touch of blue Loctite as well. And then we'll come back to the other side. Go ahead and put my little Loctite on there. I need to get my camber links in there because its axles keep falling out. And these, because of the skid plates, you have to put those on there and back them up off a little bit. I will probably change these out later on to the skinny. They make a skinnier locking nut. That's what I like to use with these skid plates. I'll probably come back to that later, because I don't have them handy and I'm in somewhat of a hurry. Just make sure it stays free and doesn't get in a bind. Okay, so then our sway bar links get the set screw. Just run it in just beyond flush. Just enough to keep the pin out, not to go too much. You're going to push the top plate on the arm out. Okay, so there's that. Let's go ahead and see if we can put our camber links in to hold all this together. Okay, remember our line on the camber link goes towards the left side, so let's see if I can get the right. Then I use the next to bottom hole on the inner camber link. Touch of blue Loctite. Then I use the middle hole. Yeah, that's right. I had to double check my nitro car. Nope, wrong one. Okay, start beat this. Next, let's go ahead and put the Loctite on there. Center hole on the outer hub. Okay, so we can put our body mount on now. Get these peels out of the way. Okay, so now we're back to the shock tower mounting. And these screws are too long. So hang on, I'm going to sort out some shorter screws. Okay, so I'm running out of time. For now, I'm just going to put these longer screws on there. I'll come back later and shorten them up. I like to use a shorter screw on these, just where it barely goes through the nut, because it makes the taking the body on and off a little easier. So for now, just for the sake of this video, I'm going to put these on there. Okay, so we got our shock standoffs. I mentioned this in my front end video. I use a longer screw on the shock standoffs with a different washer on the back for support, which I think I'm out of those. I think I've got one, if I remember right. So I use a 25mm screw. Actually, I've got 2 of these. I'm gonna use these. I'm out of the orange ones, so I'm gonna use these silver ones for now. So I used the longer screw with this washer on the back. See, I did it there. That's the orange ones. I'll probably replace it with those. But this washer gives it a little more support, because when I go through the 3rd hole, this gives a little more support, because these tend to bend when impacts and stuff. So I get a little Loctite and go about halfway down where the standoff's going to be. Got all my tools up out of the way. Okay, and that's pretty much it. There you have it. Make sure you got it good, free suspension travel and everything. So that's pretty much it for the rear end assembly. I'm going to come back and change these shock tower bolts to the ones I like. These are probably actually the standoff, the stock standoffs, but you see how I got those on there. So I'm going to wrap this up and I'll be back. Okay everybody, this wraps up the rear end assembly, step 9. Next step should be like the radio tray. I'm actually not sure what the next step is. We got battery mounts, radio tray, servo, and ESC mount. The next video I'll probably get all that mounted. I don't know if I'll get to the ESC and servo and all that. I'm not sure how it's going to be, so I'll sort that out and get back with you for the next video, which will be step 10. So make sure you keep watching. Please subscribe, like, share, and hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.